there are women being raped right now. There are farm workers being beaten every single day. There are Filipino maids who get groped and then abused by their bosses, and when they get pregnant, they get shipped back to that rural island they came from. And there are people who are tortured in sweatshops and locked in pens every night. There are hundreds of thousands of them, and they have been there for decades, and we have always known. They're your cleaners, your grape pickers, your factory workers, and we have pretended to forget because it made our stuff cheaper. Right? We never said goodbye to colonialism. We just moved it home. Right? These are crimes against humanity. They are unworthy of civilized societies, and they need to stop. The most arrogant thing they said was the status quo works. It works for you. It does not work for these people. We got denialism from them, and we got complaints that it would cost too much. And then they told us that we were liars. Well, this is unacceptable. First point, before we get into the real debate. The real debate was about whether or not the status quo is fine, and secondly, about whether or not there were negative consequences that were worse than what is happening to human beings right now. Firstly, they said, why full citizenship? Because we want to extend the full protection of the rights and privileges of being a member of our community, and we want to do it now. The difference between citizenship and amnesty is, one, you don't get those full human rights, and secondly, amnesty is not permanent. What amnesty means is you get residency while you apply for citizenship and can still be rejected. That is not good enough. That is not good enough given what we have done to them. Right? So, is the status quo fine? First bit of denialism out of the gate from these people was, we never consented, right? The arrogance of this, right? Maybe not explicitly, right? But if you think about it, if you think about it for 5 minutes, you realise that you tolerate this and you don't do anything about it. And furthermore, if human rights are being violated in your country, and you have a vote, and you have a voice, and you do nothing about it, then you are responsible. You could have done something about it, and you didn't. Then they said, oh, well, there are legal avenues to citizenship. There are 8 variants of denialism. I'm going to go through them in order, right? Secondly, legal avenues to citizenship exist. Firstly, not for people that don't meet the test in the status quo. All of the tests that they spoke about, which we think are fairly racist tests. Why do you think France cares about patriotism and language tests and whether or not you know who was killed in the massacre of Chartres in 1542, right? It's an excuse to not admit brown people, right? But secondly, you can't apply under the normal channels, the legal channels, if you have already broken the law. Then they said, we have asylum law, right? So why are you worrying about what happens to these people when they go home? Firstly, these people broken the law in many of these countries. You can't apply for asylum if you break the law. Secondly, these people don't have passports. They were taken away from them. You can't prove your identity anymore. Thirdly, there are some terrible things that happen to people that do not meet the case for asylum in all sorts of countries because their laws have not caught up yet. A Chinese woman working in a brothel in Tokyo who gets pregnant and is therefore deported to deeply conservative rural China has not met the test for asylum. She is a victim of our tolerance of what has happened to her, and we have to help her. And then they said, it's all right, just fine the image-conscious corporations. And I love this. Firstly, I want to, right? I really, really want to. Not mutually exclusive. Secondly, the Russian mafia is not an image-conscious corporation. Right? Thirdly, how are you going to make this legal case against them without the testimony, guys? Right? Okay, species of denialism, 5, right? These people do not meet the normal citizenship conditions. They don't speak the language, right? They don't know about our culture. They're not productive enough, right? All that kind of stuff. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 responses to this argument. Firstly, we think these tests are often racist excuses. Secondly, we think it is not good enough to deprive people of rights because they don't speak your language, right? The Chinese clam pickers that died in my country in Morecambe Bay, and there were over 100 of them, didn't need to speak English in order to die, right? Thirdly, right, this forgets, right, that, these people are, to say that these people are not productive is callous. They've been making stuff for you for a lot of time, right? They've proven that they work for you. Fourthly, to say that these people are not socially responsible when they're helping us lock up some of the worst criminals in our societies seems a bit odd. Fifthly, it forgets that we don't apply those conditions for asylum. What we are doing is we're extending asylum to these people within our own countries. They're not economic migrants anymore. They are abused people that need our help. Then, next, it's apparently unfair to other immigrants. Firstly, this is not zero-sum. We think most of the rich countries in the world could take an awful lot more immigrants than they currently do, and we don't cap things like asylum on the grounds we think it might be a bit expensive to take people who are being tortured. But secondly, we say economic migrants are not victims of crimes that we have tolerated and perpetuated. Species of denialism, whatever it is, 7 I think. Okay, they can migrate legally, so it's fine. Clearly, transparently false, because what person would consent to this being done to them if they had that option? These are the most marginal, the most vulnerable, the most degraded and the most abused, and they are in our countries. Finally, it is unfair to our citizens. Now this I just don't understand, right? I never had to prove that I was patriotic. I never had to prove I knew anything about British history. I never had to be economically productive. I could be a total waste of time, right? And I get to stay. I get to stay. I don't have to do anything. I just had to, well, my parents had to pass a fairly simple practical test. They got to stay. So I don't think that's true. So when they go the status quo works, denialism, right? Lies. No, the liars in this case are these people. They, 2 variants, no, not shame. Shame on you, sir. 2 negative consequences. Firstly, this is a burden on the state beyond its capacity to give welfare. A couple of things. Firstly, we think it is pathetic. We think it is pathetic to complain about costs if you agree with us that there are issues of fundamental human rights at stake. We do not agree to tolerate that because it costs us a little bit too much, particularly when we are responsible. But even if that was what this debate is, it is dishonest. Because if you look at things like amnesties in Texas and in Spain that have happened multiple times, people always said, the state welfare budget will explode. It never did, right? Right? Spain's economy is screwed for other reasons, right? Finally, it reduces some costs, right? This is the third reply to this. Large, illegal immigrant communities often create very expensive social problems because they are they are outside the state, right? So bringing these people into the legal economy often boosts state revenue, reduces some other costs. It at least has an offsetting effect. Basically, this is the price you pay for being rich and a human being at the same time. Finally, on the issue of stigma. Now, what we want to say is that some people just hate people that aren't their race, right? We can't do anything about those people, neither can they, right? But we think that when you think about what the pervasive myths about immigrants are, the things you hear are, these people are outside society and they are criminals. And the other thing you hear is, these people are unfairly taking my job, because they undercut labour regulation and the rest of it. We shatter those myths overnight. That's what Toshi said. No reply. None. They wouldn't bother, right? Yeah, it's not reasoning on that side of the case. Then finally, we would say, on the issue of stigma, illegal communities become festering slums. They become underclasses that are predated on, that are targeted for criminality and abuse. And again, a lot of myths about migrants relates from the fact that these communities become those slums, right? If they are legitimate, if they are part of our societies, it is easier for the state to target intervention at those people. They spoke about France. France has one of the lowest rates of immigration in Europe. Check me if you don't believe it. Check me if you don't believe it. It is not because they took migrants that France has these problems with race relations. It is because social neglect turned in the slums of Paris into open race war. That is what causes stigma. That is what we deal with, and that is the final of about 5 million reasons why we win this debate.